there is a movie that ever since I saw it when I was around 10 years old, so, around 93-ish, 92, 93-ish, ever since then has remained in my favorite movies of all time list. It's never been gone. It's never been, it's shifted spots maybe, but it's never been gone from that list. And that movie is not the one we saw today, because obviously that wasn't out there back then, but it might as well be, because structurally speaking, it's the same movie, and I'm talking about Conan the Barbarian, but today we saw The Northman, which I think a lot of people have noticed, say this really resembles that movie over there.
Yeah.
But I pointed out something as we were leaving the theater, and upon the minimal research that we do here, realize, super minimal. Realize that
we're actually looking up Snickers dick veins instead.
Mm-hmm. And it just happened to remember that Vikings have dick veins too.
Yeah.
One thing led to the other. Next thing you know, oh yeah. Anyway, upon minimal research, what I posited to you as we left the theater apparently was true, and that's that. I remembered as we were exiting the theater that the guy that directed and was responsible for the way Conan the Barbarian, and I'm speaking the 1982 version here, not that Momoa atrocity, John Milius, he imbued a lot of the things that he loved into that movie. It's Milius's personality in that movie, but one of the things that Milius loves is history, specifically Scandinavian, Norwegian history. And I was like, you know what? Because we too, it's impossible to not notice the parallels between the Northman and Conan the Barbarian, structurally speaking. You'd have to be blind or I guess never have seen it. But anyway, I was like, you know what? Milius changed Conan. Milius's Conan is not Robert E. Howard's Conan. And one of the things that I knew for sure was that he had put a lot of that Viking lore love that he has into it. And it just so happens that, yes, the Northman is actually based on a story, Scandinavian story.
By Gornak?
Which coincidentally, by the way, by Gornak the Great, I think his name was. Facts right there.
Yep.
Coincidentally, that story is also the basis for Hamlet. Now, don't get us wrong. The Northman actually has more similarities to Conan than that story, but that's the basis. So there might be some connection there. Either way, I have to bring it up at the top because I have to ask you: is there a problem with that, or is it on a movie by movie basis that you judge whether a movie taking inspiration from something else may be going too far? And is this one of those movies? If that's the case.
I don't think it is one of those movies. I did at times go, this is just Conan.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, I didn't care / know about this Viking story, because who the hell keeps up with Viking stories?
Yeah,
they're a little outdated.
Just by fucking centuries, guy.
Yeah, so at times I was like, man, this is straight up Conan. And there's even like moments where it's just like, yeah, it's that moment from Conan.
Mm-hmm. There's even a moment in it where I'm like, this is a moment from Conan, and I wished it's doing what I wished happened in that moment in Conan that didn't happen in Conan, but it's happening now. And it's when he gets the sword. In Conan goes and gets comes across a Atlantean sword, and I always wished that the Atlantean king would come to life and fight for the sword or the possession of the sword, and of course it doesn't happen. There's like the suggestion of it, but just he fucking crumbles, and it happens here in a manner of speaking. But we'll get into that. That's how many parallels there are in terms of the story beats. A kid. And it starts with a narration from a figure in a position above Conan's or what have you. Conan in a position of mentorship, I guess you could say. It has a father figure interacting with his son and granting him some sort of a passage of knowledge, a passage into adulthood. In the case of Conan the Riddle of Steel, and here, it's more of this Viking ritual of coming of age. There's a lot of fucking moments, guys.
I call it the dog boy moment.
The dog boy moment. That's exactly what's called in script, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
There's so many, village being plundered and betrayal and the vengeance and the main hero coming across a woman that changes his life. You know, tons of them.
Slavery.
Yeah, it's stuck in slavery, what have you. So it's impossible to not say. It's impossible to avoid that, and I think it's pretty safe to say that either consciously or subconsciously, that was an inspiration, a source of inspiration.
Yeah.
It's a thin, it's a hard fucking line to walk, because you could always be like, well, this is good, assuming it's not bad. This is good, but is it doing more than that other thing that I like that is also similar, or is it doing something substantial with it? Ultimately, for me, the answer is yes, and that has a lot to do with who's behind it. And Robert Eggers, has the director and co-writer of this, has such a way with making films that feel 100% authentic and almost like raw in the terms of authenticity to whatever time he's setting them in. They feel just steeped in that stuff. And I think that alone, despite the many similarities, draws it into another place. But then there's all this other stuff that draws it into another place. And I have to admit that, obviously I love the director and I really wanted to see this. There was even that dreaded expectation that I try to avoid so much. I have to admit that for a while there, I was questioning, is there a justification for this? Not in a bad way. The movie is fucking great and enjoyable to watch, but there's also, I was in that point at the crossroads where I was like, is there a justification for this to exist? Kind of like the shot by shot remake of Psycho. This is not a shot for shot remake of Conan, obviously, but there's always that question, like, why is this even here? There was a brief amount of time in this movie where I was like, is there? But then it gets to this point where I'm like, fuck yes, I'm glad this exists. So it's always it's hard when there's genuine art on the line. When it's just a trash movie, you can either go, yeah, I enjoy it, but it, obviously it's mimicking this, or conversely, if it sucks, you can be like, fuck that shit, it sucks, and that other thing did it better. Here, I was like, I really love that other thing. I like this. Am I gonna love it? At the end of this fucking movie, there's no denying that I love this movie. And we'll get into that. But where do you stand in that regard? I'm asking you because there is so many fucking parallels.
Yeah, it's a mad Conan boy. I ended up liking it quite a bit too. I don't think I was ever like, this shouldn't exist. Or I was never questioning it.
Right.
But it is one of those things where you're like, damn, it's just Conan.
Right?
Like through most of the movie, you're like, this is just Conan. There's a point where it kind of feels more unique. Like towards, I would say maybe the middle-ish. It starts kind of carving out its own path. But for a long time, you're going to be like, this is just straight Conan.
Yeah. And that's not to say that there's not unique elements
before
that. In fact, that's really, if you're so like stuck, let's say you are stuck on the fact that you're just watching Conan basically in Viking form, full-on Viking form no less. If you are stuck on that, there's a lot of stuff that beautiful photography.
I think just visually it's very different.
Gorgeous, man. And that's, again, an Eggers trademark right now. He just knows how to make these visually beautiful pieces of art. So, visually, the fucking music, coincidentally, much like Conan, is fucking phenomenal. You're in an aural landscape the whole time. And it's very authentic to, Scandinavian, Norwegian style of music, at least in terms of the time frame it's doing its thing in. So it's gonna tickle your pickle if you're into that sort of thing, which we are. And there in itself in the story, there are a lot of unique elements that accompany the elements that are parallels that you're just like, this is fucking awesome. So I'm not saying that, and we're both not saying that there's nothing, but yeah, I think we both had that experience to some degree. But there's just really a moment where you're just like, this has a purpose and an intent, and it's very different to Conan's purpose and intent, despite all those similarities. So, but anyway, let's talk about the movie. The Northman is plot-wise is Conan, so there's that.
Yep.
That covers the plot. Yeah, it's about this kid that is the son of a Norwegian king, a conqueror, and immediately this story is steeped in Viking culture and Viking morals and ethics and thought. So it's total departure from what we today think. But anyway, this kid is steeped in this world, and honor and glory means something completely different to him. And his father is betrayed and killed by his brother, and the kid basically grows up craving revenge per, again, his Viking outlook. And it ironically ends up with him running away to survive, but becoming the very thing that he hated, and then finding a journey back through an oracle, basically, a figure that reminds him of his fate, which is initially to become a king, very Conan-like, destined to become a king. But really it ends up being something else. Really he ends up being somebody that sets up the kinghood of somebody else, or kinghood in a manner of speaking. So that's the basic thrust of the story. But what makes this thing stand apart is how unapologetically it is of that mindset that it's in.
Yeah.
It's 100% steeped in that world, just like Eggers the Witch was steeped in the world of puritanical thought.
Yeah.
I think, and just like the lighthouse was really set in that location.
Yeah,
that we have here.
I saw some people call it, because this one has been getting some pushback. Most notably, I think it was Variety was shitting on it. I've been seeing it called his attempt at a blockbuster movie failed.
Right.
I think it's more just that it's, like you said,
it shares the bones of something
like
that.
It's not only that, but it's steeped in this kind of culture, which was violent. It was, there's a lot of action in it. But it's not trying to be like this big blockbuster movie. It just happens to be in this world.
Yes, and that's the thing.
And I think it's very much like the other two movies. I think this is the easiest to watch if you're like a normal person, a normie, if you will. Hate that, but still. But I think it will also lose a lot of people. Like, there was literally people in the theater that were like, what?
Yeah, legitimately throwing up their arms going, huh?
Yeah, so...
questioning scenes.
It's not really like an attempt at this big blockbuster thing. It's just it happens to be in this world.
Yeah, and look, Eggers' previous films, again, because of the nature of their structure being steeped so deep in whatever time and place and environments they're in, that alone is enough to put a gate around the film, The Witch, when I showed it to you, which, by the way, you have to rewatch, because I made the mistake of not letting you see it with subtitles, which, given the fact that it's basically in the form of Old English, are kind of essential to it. The Lighthouse, they're dense. It's almost obtuse in nature.
Some might call The Lighthouse what the movie.
I think that's the summary. Yeah. It's a very symbolic film, very artsy film, and very obtuse, hard to get your hands on. You really have to mull it over. This is structurally a lot more straightforward,
friendly,
but it's very much in that world nonetheless, and their priorities are not our priorities. And that's what's, in my opinion, what is one of the greatest things out the gate is that if you understand that, and I'm not saying that's hard to understand, but if you understand that, you're going to get a lot from what you're seeing. Just culturally speaking, it's like being dropped into a National Geographic fucking documentary when you're in the middle of it. It's awesome, man. And the way they present the Viking world is very unique because it's not 100% like historical. This is a world where like ruthlessness and savagery, yes, are prominent, but they go hand in hand with pride and honor, and those definitions are completely not what they are now to us. There's that. It's also a world where mysticism, nature, the gods, all that, they're running together at an even pace. You know, mysticism and the mind are also running together at an even pace here. You know, there's this kind of like vague concept of magic and nature as well. You know, it's never 100% concrete where we stand, but we understand that in the point of view of these people, all these things exist. And did they actually happen to the characters we see them? Maybe they did, and maybe they didn't exactly that. But to them, it's 100% real, and that's very hard to depict. Something that to the characters in the movie is 100% real, that we see completely different now in modern times. But this movie manages to do that with everything. You know, there's never a point where the main character Amleth questions the existence of his gods, but there's also never a point where he questions the beliefs of the woman that he ends up, you know, kind of tied to, which, you know, vary to his. There's never a point where he questions magic. There's never a question where he questions nature and its power. None of that stuff. These people just exist 100% in belief of what is before them, and that's kind of fucking fascinating to watch. And it creates something unique. And I'll go back to that scene where he's, well, first of all, he visits and is visited by soothsayers and you know, witches and oracles throughout the movie. That alone is an obtuse concept to get across, but that's what sets him on his path. And then there's the gods having their hand in it. Is it actually the gods, or is it him reading into the gods? But then later you're presented with things that, is it his point of view verifying 100% that it's the gods, or is it actually the god? There's this vagueness to it that is actually, it actually feels natural to this world. Vagueness can be bad in a movie, but in this case, I think it works wonderfully. It shows its own kind of magic. It feels like a fantasy movie without super fantasy elements, and that's pretty fucking fascinating, man. I really love that about it. You know, it was one of those things that it just fucking makes me geek out just seeing somebody handle that so well. So anyway, that's about that. Anything else, guy, you want, or something that you noticed? Maybe something you hated?
I noticed one thing. I noticed two things. One thing I hated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing I noticed, and I actually had to audibly go, "Damn, homie," was the brothers, the king's brother's ass was humongous. I was like, holy shit, that's a big ass. I don't know if you heard me, but I was like, damn, homie. So that was weird. And then also, I was promised CGI penis, and it did not deliver.
Did not, gang. I did see some penis, though.
But there was a cool naked man battle that was pretty freaking awesome.
Pretty much the best naked man battle since Borat's naked man battle.
Damn, that might be more epic, honestly.
Borat one?
Yeah. But it was a great battle. So yeah, I'm not gonna complain. Though I did want to get my money back because there was no CGI penis.
I'll tell you this about the movie: the trailer gives the illusion that this is an incredibly violent movie, and it is.
It is.
But the violence is a lot more implied than you would think. There's not a lot of violence that is actually 100% explicitly shown. I would say that Conan, in terms of showing the effects of violence, is a lot more violent than this. Here the implication of violence so resonates a lot stronger. Yeah. And the violence, and I think it was a very, very restrained and kind of smart move. Not that I would oppose to a more violent one, because, you know, that would be even more awesome. But I think the disturbing nature of his world is enough to amplify you not directly seeing a lot of the effects of the violence. The camera really lingers on Amleth a lot when he's doing his violent thing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, sometimes he's doing whatever violence he's doing or inflicting upon the world or a person, and that thing or person is out of a shot and it's just him. And kind of, it works a lot. There's just a bigger impact to it, you know?
Yeah, I think there's only like maybe two kind of big action scenes, maybe three.
There's a few, but like, they're not like, what you think of an action scene.
Yeah, like that you would consider like a kind of typical action scene,
right?
Would maybe like two or three.
These are not action scenes where you're like, hell yeah, this guy's cool because he did all this stuff. They're action scenes where you're kind of like perturbed at the brutality of the world he lives in.
Like, he's pretty
Well,
cool.
it's cool. Don't get me wrong.
One, where
but,
he's like just kicking ass through the.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. It's cool, but the movie also really makes you understand how disturbing his world is. And there's even a part in this movie that might be probably my favorite. I'm not gonna say part, but one of my favorite elements about the character of Amleth. Let me say that, where he realizes that he's kind of like completely 100% bound to this world that is moving on. You know, the woman that he has bound his fate with, that he can potentially create a lineage on Earth with and move on with, she's the progress of his bloodline. But he is literally bound to this ancient, brutal, and hostile world. And he makes one of the hardest choices. And in his world, that choice is 100% right. But in her world, it makes no sense. You know, in the world that she's heading to, that she, technically the movie's setting up her kinghood, so to speak. You know, that's really what the prophecy ends up being. Though it could have been something else, you know. He's just trapped in this world, whether he wants to move on from it or not. He is literally of that world. And the movie kind of is disturbing in that sense, because it kind of says something about any culture. And that's that progress is built on the bones of those that built what was there before. And those bones are bones because they can't give up that old world. You know what I'm saying? And that's the kind of the tragedy of this character, is that no matter what good he sees or what potential for a future and hope he sees, he's so stuck to this idea and these morals and these ethics of this cruel world that's what he sees as honor and glory. And it's kind of like this double-sided sword. It's really fucking cool. And it adds a shade of sadness and eventuality to his character, but it also gives us an awesome naked man battle in the process.
Huge ass.
So yeah,
got Willem.
Very cool. Got Willem Dafoe. You got to have a little Willem in there, and you know, he's a fool and a tool. A fool because he's literally a fucking jester at one point, and doing what jesters do best, pointing out truths, no matter how harsh they are. Truths that end up being, you know, lending a lot to what the movie's about or the story is about. And then later he's the tool of one of these oracles that he comes across, our main character comes across in a very cool sequence that again makes you question exactly the extent of magic's hold in this world and the gods and all that stuff. It's a very cool sequence. I really enjoyed that. And I want that
head
prop. It's pretty fucking awesome. Look, man, the costuming in this is amazing. The sets are amazing. Again, visually speaking, these shots are gorgeously composed. This was one of the loudest movies I've been to. And it all had to do with this rousing music score that was fucking badass. You know, it's one of those scores that had the imagery at any point, you know, kind of like not done what it would set out to do. It would have been like, how can you not live up to what we're hearing here? A really, really great score. The cast across the board, amazing. You were like, who the hell was Ethan Hawke?
Who was Ethan Hawke?
I'm still like, who was Ethan Hawke?
I'm guessing it was the big butt guy.
Big ass man? Maybe? I don't know, guy. Yeah, dude, really, really cool in all those regards.
Yeah, I gotta say the dude who he was pretty cool. What's his name? One of the Skarsgårds?
Yeah, Alexander.
He was pretty cool. I did kind of like. I think you even mentioned it. Kind of wish he hadn't cut his hair.
Oh yeah.
Because he kind of looked like Kevin Sorbo when he cut it.
Yeah. So when he's a kid, he's literally played by a kid.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously he runs away and grows up Conan style. But he grows up amidst the barbarians of Russia, or in this case, archaic Russia. And he's still in full Viking mode, basically. He's a berserker guy, you know what I'm saying? And he's rad looking. He's a badass Viking guy.
He's got this hunched over.
Mm-hmm. But when he's set back on his fate to kill the man that killed his father and avenged his father, thus by Bjork no less. That was kind of weird.
Oh, that was Bjork?
That was Bjork, baby.
The chick without the eyes?
Yeah.
That's weird.
The shell eyes.
Mm.
Anyway, when he's set back on this journey, he has to basically sneak back into his world under the guise of a slave, and he cuts his hair, and it's mad He-Man guy.
Yeah, the hair's like
Straight heat.
straight
And He-Man doesn't have cool hair, let me tell you.
Like at times I was like, he looks like Kevin Sorbo, except he's not insane and shitty.
Mm-hmm. And definitely not Christian because he's a Viking.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Kevin Sorbo was one of those Christians that make Christians look bad.
Yeah.
Stinky boy. Anyway, fucking his hair sucks, but
he's pretty cool.
He's so awesome that you're like, I forgive this shitty hair that would be more apropos on a medieval page. Stinky.
He shouldn't have cut it though.
He shouldn't have hit his muscles either. But let me tell you,
I know he had such a great bod. I wasn't gonna say it, but body mass alone.
Yeah, look, if you got a Viking or a barbarian, you need to see some muscles, guy.
Yeah.
So of course this all makes sense in the story, but I was craving muscles. But again, naked man battle made up for all that non-muscle.
That's true.
I'm gonna tell you, Taylor-Joy is another constant of Robert Eggers, and she's a damn delight in this one. She's just fucking good, dude. She's one of those.
She's Princess Peach, guy.
Basically, yeah. In real life, I mean. And she's also a gecko looking ass.
Oh, she does kind of look
sexy
like a
gecko. I can see her licking her eyes. I don't know why. But
Is that
anyway.
what geckos do? Do they lick their eyes?
In my world, they do. But she's just fucking great. I mean, she was fantastic in The Witch. And she's one of those things that is, I think, one of the failings. I'm not going to say failing, but one of those things that's a little shaky in Conan. And, in Conan, his muse, as it were, of life is Valeria. And, the actress isn't that great. And, yeah, they're simpatico to each other, but there's just something that didn't, you just want some cool Conan shit to happen, basically. You're not really 100% invested in the relationship, in my opinion, anyway. Here, this is one of those, in a normal movie, you'd be like, why are you forcing this relationship into this fucking cool movie? But here, it's like, this is a rock solid interaction of these two people that are almost very protective of who they are in their very own specific ways. And because she plays it kind of as a parallel to his mother in the movie, an opposing parallel, but nonetheless, she's kind of like someone that has to use her wiles and her cunning to survive in this brutal world. And it just so happens that she sees something in this guy, and eventually he sees something in her that make them open up more to each other, which sets them on a path together. That's a lot more believable than your standard, stick a romance in a fucking action movie type of thing. So there's a lot of substance to it because she becomes incredibly vulnerable for him. And then, there's a lot of stakes come out of that. On the other hand,
about $200 worth of steaks.
Delicious ones.
A joke that you'll get.
On the other hand, his mother ends up being much the same character, a woman that's had to use her cunning and wiles and ultimately a form of treachery to survive in this cruel world. And she goes to places that are like really fucked. Mm-hmm. Really fucked. And it really communicates how fucked up this world is.
Yeah.
That she's willing to put everything aside just to come out on top, just to ensure her survival, no matter how important it is to her. And that comes on top of a revelation that to the character is hugely impacting. So it's like a double whammy. And
double mammy.
It's a double mammy! Not that kind of mammy, in case you're wondering.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, the female characters here, they're surviving in not only the same world that these men are, a brutal, cold, cruel, and ugly world, but they're having a harder time because it's a highly patriarchal world controlled by the whims of men. And that sounds, agenda driven by today's terms, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is that they're in as ugly a situation as anybody else. It's pretty cool, and it really adds substance to these characters in very different ways, which I thought was cool. Also, Nicole Kidman thankfully didn't look 100% fake like she usually does with all her weird surgeries.
I'm a hater now.
The surgery she's done,
I
guy.
like Nick, eh?
I say I hate Nick. I'm just saying she usually looks mad fake, guy.
Damn, homie.
Thankfully here she just looked, like a pretty older woman.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank God, man.
Hater?
Saw a little ducky lip here now and then, but not in the plasticky way.
Yeah.
I was like, man, that could have been weird.
Anyway.
What else, guy?
That's it, guy.
Yeah, the Northman is fucking awesome, guy. I love Eggers and what he's doing.
I feel like your egg love is disturbing. But I get it, I guess.
He's just great at these types of things. I love his fucking dialogue. I know that's a big barrier for a lot of people. But, again, there's an authenticity to it. Given the time to play, and he can do it for a variety of them. It's clearly one of his strong points. Can't believe we didn't mention this, a little bit more outright. But in terms of the mind and mysticism, a lot of the magic as portrayed here in this movie has to do, of course, with their belief system. And we're introduced to it in a variety of ways. Most prominently, the idea of hallucinogens affecting how they see this ethereal world. But there is still this very prominent vacillation with the possibility that there is something else at work here. One, the oracles that he encounters, the rites that they undergo, the fact that there is this weird sword that he has to go out and that he can't withdraw. And it's not only him that can't withdraw it. You might say it's a mental thing, but it's other people that can't withdraw it because it's supposed to be only drawn out at night. So there's always these weird things. There's the presence of Odin that is prominent throughout, primarily through crows, which he initially sees as his father guiding him. But of course, if you know Norse mythology, Odin is a crow boy. So there's that, and ultimately visions of that. He has visions of Valhalla, and the movie literally ends with him having his spirit taken to Valhalla by a Valkyrie, which, by the way, was one of the moments where the people in front of us were like,
what is that?
what? And they looked at each other and like, what the hell? What does this mean? And I was like,
earlier.
Come on, guy. It's literally kind of telling you.
Literally moments where it just kind of tells you stuff.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of them. As opposed to like a Lighthouse where you have to figure out a lot of the stuff.
Like, what
the fact that this is a lot. Again, summary, plot line. There's a lot in the culture that's being presented that allows the film to explain all this stuff. But it's a really cool line between what is and what isn't. Magic in the mind, religion in the mind, and how they might actually work together, which is pretty cool. An idea that a lot of like these DMT takers are kind of going into. It's pretty cool, man. I really, really enjoyed the way that was portrayed, because it could have gone the full out Conan way and just been like, this is a world where lizard people, and then and that's cool. Don't get me wrong, of course, love Conan.
Freaking Thulsa Doom now.
I love Thulsa Doom, Snake Boy, but I'm just saying this is one of those things that
it's a different take on it.
Allows you, it's one of those elements that makes you go, this is why.
What is that?
They're building next door again.
Oh.
This is why this feels justifiable, not just a retread of certain things, and then you're like, why? That's one of those really strong elements that I fucking enjoyed in this picture. But anyway, any final thoughts and a final score on this flick, gang? Yep.
I enjoyed it. I got past the Conan factor pretty quickly, I think. I do think that it's probably, again, not for everyone, but it is the most friendly to people, I would say, of his flicks. So I'll give it a mad 9.5, maybe even a 10 on a good day, because it did have a naked man battle. I had to take 0.5 off because I didn't see no CGI penis.
Yeah, the penis lack is sad. But, a thing. Kid gets killed in this, and that pleases me to no end.
Hey, you're really happy about that.
That kid was an annoying guy. Needed to die. Anyway, there's a story related to a kid in the theater that I also enjoy, that ends up with me burping. Yep. But anyway, there's a kid story that we're going to do in another video on itself. But anyway, dude, this again, it's very hard for me as a director goes along that I like to see the next movie and the next movie, because there's always the inevitable moment where a director's not going to live up to it. And I'm very glad to say that this was not it. He lives up to the reputation that he's built up in my eyes and in a lot of people's eyes, obviously. This is fucking great. And as a fan of Conan, yeah, of course, I was seeing all these parallels, but I was very glad that it justified its existence and then some. And it did it in a lot of ways, not just, oh, this one thing or whatever. It did it in a lot of ways. There's so much substance to chew in this movie, either from a creative angle or just, a cultural angle, or the whole experience of it. It's this is what I feel Avatar should have been like. You really want to submerge me into a world. This is how you do it, not with pretty colors.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Big Sigourney Weaver cat. People.
Well, Sigourney Weaver was cute in Avatar, and that's about the only good thing I can say. Point. This is what I feel a movie like that was maybe wanting to do, but it did it so superficially that I fucking blew my nards. This one, like, there's no way you can't get completely surrounded by what's the goings on. Rousing, awesome, a lot of like hair raising in terms of excitement moments. And it's just impossible not to get riled up in all the right ways when you're watching it. I'm going to give it a 9.5 because...
CGI penis?
CGI penis, clearly. I'm going to give it a 9.5 because I still think The Witch is his masterpiece. And, The Lighthouse, I also think it's a masterpiece. The 0.5 takeoff is because, the Conan parallels, can't deny them, guy. But also, that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying. Come on. But anyway... hope y'all check this out. It needs to make 200 million. It needs to make 200 million to break even.
Woo!
So it would be really good for obviously Robert Eggers to get his Nosferatu project off the ground. But who knows, man? Maybe it's only been out a week at the time of this recording, so maybe there is some time. But maybe not.
I don't think so. But maybe.
Hey, man, I'm just glad that we're getting movies like this on the big screen, And for every person that's like, they just keep remaking stuff, granted, very Conan-y, or, man, another sequel. Go on and watch movies like this.
There's a lot of kind of original movies going on right now.
Right now, guy?
That Asian one.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh, everything. What is it?
What is it? Everything Everywhere at Once?
Yeah, Everything Everywhere at Once, We got A24 really is releasing a lot of original fucking great, awesome shit.
You got Nick Cage being Nick Cage.
Nick Cage being Nick Cage. I mean, there's a lot of original stuff out there that's not your standard fare. Not that standard fare is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I get so tired of just reading those complaints, and it's like, dude, there's so much out there.
Maybe if you watch the movies, the original, we'd get more, you turd.
Yeah. And this one's a fucking fantastic, awesome, very memorable ride. Can't wait to watch it again. But anyway, give it a shot. Let us know what you think. And, and we're out.